When my only daughter looked me in the eyes and said, "Dad, you need to leave this house. It's not yours anymore," I felt my world collapse. 2 days later, I was sleeping in my car outside the home I had built with my own 2 hands. That's when I realized life doesn't just throw curveballs. Sometimes it hands you a grenade with the pin already pulled. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a mountain road, and you'll want to be buckled in for the ride. For 30 years, I was just Thomas Miller, a hard-working contractor who believed in 2 things: honest labor and family. My wife Elaine and I weren't wealthy by any means, but we managed to build a comfortable life in our modest suburban home. Our pride and joy was our daughter Clara, smart as a whip with her mother's golden hair and my stubborn determination. When Elaine was diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago, we faced it like we faced everything, together. I took fewer jobs to be by her side through chemo. Clara came home from college on weekends. We were united front against an invisible enemy. Promise me you'll take care of Clara. Elaine whispered me one night in the hospital. And promise she'll take care of you too. I nodded, holding back tears. That's what family does. When Elaine passed, something in Clara changed. She became distant, spending more time with her new boyfriend, Jason, a slick finance guy with expensive tastes. I chalked it up to grief. We all process loss differently. 3 months after the funeral, I was still trying to piece our lives back together when Clara showed up with a man in a tailored suit. "Dad, this is Mr. Winters. He's handling Mom's estate," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I frowned. "Estate? Your mother and I had a simple will. Everything goes to you after I'm gone." Mr. Winters cleared his throat. "Actually, Mr. Miller, it seems Mrs. Miller had a separate will drawn up last year. One you weren't aware of." The floor seemed to shift beneath my feet. "That's impossible." He placed a document on our kitchen table, the same table where I taught Clara to draw, where we'd eaten Sunday dinners for decades. "I'm afraid it's quite legal," he said. "The house and most assets have been left directly to Clara, effective immediately. Script part separator ===. I stared at that document until the words blurred together. It had Elaine's signature. There was no denying that, but I couldn't understand why she'd do this without telling me. "There must be some mistake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Winters adjusted his glasses. "The will is quite clear, Mr. Miller. There's also a letter explaining Mrs. Miller's wishes." Clara slid an envelope across the table. Her hand was trembling, but her face remained cold, detached. "I tore it open. Disperate foram ver." Inside was a single page in Elaine's handwriting. "Thomas, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I've made arrangements to secure Clara's future. The house and our savings will transfer to her immediately. This is not a reflection of my love for you, but a mother's need to protect her child. Clara will explain the rest." I looked up at my daughter, bewildered. "Explain what? What is this about?" Clara exchanged glances with Mr. Winters before speaking. "Mom knew about your gambling, Dad. The loans you took out against the house." "What gambling? What loans?" I was genuinely confused. "Please don't lie anymore," Clara said, her voice breaking slightly. "Mom found everything, the credit card statements, the calls from debt collectors. She was trying to save what was left for me." My mind raced. "Yet the gambled a day in my life." The only loan was our mortgage, which we'd been paying faithfully for years. "Clara, someone's been lying to you." I never. "Just stop." She slammed her hand on the table. "Mom told me everything before she died. How you nearly lost the house twice. How she had to use her inheritance to cover your debts." I felt like I was in some bizarre nightmare. Elaine's inheritance had gone toward Clara's college fund. We'd been completely transparent about that. "There's something else," Mr. Winters interjected, his tone professionally detached. "A condition of the will states that Clara only receives everything if you vacate the property within 30 days. Script part separator ===. I stared at them in disbelief. "Vacate? This is my home. I built the back deck with my own hands." "I'm sorry, Dad," Clara said, but her eyes told a different story. There was something cold there, something calculated that I'd never seen before. "The will is clear. You have 30 days. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the floors of the home where I'd raised my child, trying to make sense of what was happening. Nothing added up. Elaine and I had shared everything, every bank account, every decision. How could she have hidden something this monumental? The next morning, I called our family attorney, James Perkins. We'd known each other for 20 years, played golf occasionally. He'd prepared our original will. Thomas, he said, sounding genuinely shocked. I had no idea about any secondary will. This isn't right. Can we fight it? I asked. We can try, but if Elaine's signature is verified. He sighed. I'll need to see these documents. But when I asked Clara for copies, she refused. Mr. Winters is handling everything now, she said dismissively. That's when I noticed the changes in our home. Clara had already begun replacing family photos with modern art. My tools were moved from the garage to make room for Jason's sleek sports car. You're erasing your mother, I said one evening, watching her take down Elaine's favorite painting. I'm moving forward, Clara replied without turning around. Maybe you should too. 2 weeks later, I came home to find my belongings packed in boxes in the living room. Clara stood next to Jason and Mr. Winters. We've found you an apartment, she announced. It's small but affordable on your pension. I have 2 more weeks, I protested. The movers are coming tomorrow, Jason said, checking his expensive watch. We're doing renovations. That night, I sat alone in my bedroom surrounded by boxes. I pulled out an old photo album and flipped through memories. Clara's 5th birthday, family camping trips, Elaine and me on our 20th anniversary. What had happened to us? What had happened to my little girl? The next morning, they changed the locks while I was getting coffee. Script part separator, I stood on my own front porch, coffee growing cold in my hand, as the locksmith finished his work. Clara couldn't even look at me, her eyes fixed on her phone screen. You can't do this, I said, my voice breaking. This is illegal. I have rights. Mr. Winters stepped forward, a document in hand. Actually, the court has granted an emergency eviction based on Mrs. Miller's will provisions. You're technically trespassing now. Jason smirked behind him. We've arranged for your things to be placed in storage. The first month is paid. I looked at Clara, searching for any sign of the daughter I'd raised. Why? What did I ever do except love you? She finally met my eyes, and for a second, I thought I saw doubt flicker across her face. Then Jason placed his hand on her shoulder, and her expression hardened. You betrayed Mom's trust, she said flatly. She wanted me to have security. Security. I laughed bitterly. I worked double shifts for 20 years to give you both security. Yet somehow we were always in debt, she replied coldly. Mom told me everything before she died. That night, I slept in my car parked 3 blocks away, too ashamed to call friends. By morning, my back was screaming, and my pride was in tatters. I drove to a cheap motel and used my credit card to book a room for a week. It was all I could afford. I called James again, desperate for answers. Thomas, there's something strange about this will, he said. The execution date is when Elaine was undergoing heavy chemo. Her oncologist confirmed she was hardly lucid that week. Hope flickered. So it could be challenged. Possibly, but we need evidence of coercion or forgery. And Clara has all the documents. 2 days later, my credit card was declined at the motel. When I called the bank, they informed me all my accounts had been frozen due to suspected fraud. Who authorized this? I demanded. The request came from the executor of Elaine Miller's estate, the bank representative said apologetically. They were systematically cutting me off. First my home, now my money. I had $43 in cash, no place to stay, and a growing suspicion that this was about far more than my daughter's inheritance. Script part separator, That night, I parked behind an abandoned strip mall, too broken to think clearly. Rain drummed on the roof of my car as I leafed through old photos on my phone, glimpses of a life that no longer existed. At dawn, I made a decision. If they wanted to destroy me, I wouldn't go down without understanding why. I drove to Frank Donovan's house. We'd worked construction jobs together for 15 years before he started his own security company. Frank didn't ask questions when he saw my unshaven face and rumpled clothes. He just made coffee and listened. "Something's not adding up, Tom," he said after I finished my story. "Elaine wasn't the type to go behind your back." "I know. And these gambling debts. Complete fiction." Frank's expression darkened. "This sounds like someone's building a narrative. Who benefits if you're painted as the bad guy?" That question haunted me as I used Frank's shower and borrowed clean clothes. "Who indeed?" Frank let me crash on his couch and loaned me some cash. "My buddy works at the county records office," he offered. "Let's see what we can find about your house." 2 days later, we discovered something disturbing. 3 months before Elaine's death, our mortgage had been refinanced, with forged signatures that barely resembled mine. "Someone took out equity against your home," Frank said grimly. "Almost $200,000. My hands shook as I stared at the documents. "But where did that money go?" "Not to me." Frank's security background proved invaluable. He helped me set up surveillance outside my former home, where Clara now lived with Jason. We documented visitors, including frequent appearances by Mr. Winters and another man in expensive suits. "That's Vernon Pike," Frank identified the stranger. "Real estate developer. Been buying up properties all over your neighborhood." The pieces were starting to form a picture I didn't like. This wasn't just about inheritance. Someone was playing a much bigger game, and using my daughter as their pawn. Script part separator ===. I needed to find the connection between Pike, Winters, and Jason. Frank helped me run background checks that revealed a disturbing pattern. All 3 men were tied to Meridian Development Group, a company known for aggressive property acquisitions throughout the county. With the last of my borrowed cash, I rented a room at a boarding house and began working odd construction jobs for income. Each night, I compiled information, building my case piece by piece. 6 weeks after my eviction, I witnessed a neighborhood meeting from across the street. Through Frank's telephoto lens, I watched Vernon Pike addressing my neighbors with Clara at his side. "They're announcing a new development," Frank murmured as he snapped photos. "Looks like they want the whole block." The next day, I followed Mr. Winters to a coffee shop where he met with Jason. I sat nearby, baseball cap pulled low, and recorded their conversation on my phone. "We need the Miller property signed over to the LLC by next month," Winters said. "Clara's still hesitating about the demolition." Jason laughed. "She'll do whatever I suggest. The old man's completely out of the picture now." Winters lowered his voice. "Speaking of which, has he made any trouble?" "Not a peep. Probably living in his car somewhere. We've frozen his accounts, ruined his credit. He's finished." My blood boiled, but I forced myself to remain still. Now I knew they had deliberately destroyed me to get my property for their development scheme. But one crucial question remained. How had they convinced Elaine to sign that will? What leverage did they have over my dying wife? The answer came from an unexpected source. The hospice nurse who had cared for Elaine during her final weeks reached out through James, my attorney. "Mr. Miller," she said when we met secretly at a diner, "your wife was heavily medicated when she supposedly signed those papers. And there's something else. She asked me to deliver a message to you if anything strange happened after she passed." My heart raced. "What message?" She said, "Tell Thomas to look behind the loose brick in the garden wall. What matters most is hidden there. Script part separator ===. That night, I waited until 3 a.m. before approaching my old home. The garden wall Elaine mentioned ran along the back of our property, a project we'd completed together 15 years earlier. I knew every brick because I'd laid each one with my own hands. The loose brick was exactly where I remembered, near the flowering jasmine Elaine had planted. My fingers trembled as I worked it free, revealing a small waterproof container tucked into the hollow space behind. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note in Elaine's careful script. "Thomas, if you're reading this, they've made their move. I never signed anything willingly. The truth is all here. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. They threatened Clara. I love you both." I clutched the note to my chest, emotions overwhelming me. Elaine hadn't betrayed me. She'd been protecting us until the very end. At Frank's house, we plugged in the USB drive. It contained folders of documents, photos, and audio recordings, evidence Elaine had secretly gathered during her final months. The truth was more sinister than I'd imagined. Meridian Development had targeted our entire neighborhood for a massive commercial project. They needed our house specifically because it sat at a critical junction point. When Elaine refused to sell, they'd moved to Plan B. One audio file captured a conversation between Jason and Pike. "Her mother's the problem," Jason's voice said. "The old man will sell if we push hard enough." "Then get close to the daughter," Pike replied. "We've invested too much to let one stubborn family ruin everything." There were photos of Jason meeting with Pike months before he'd coincidentally met Clara at her campus coffee shop. Their entire relationship had been orchestrated from the beginning. But the most damning evidence was a video Elaine had recorded from her hospital bed, looking frail but determined. "I'm being coerced to sign documents I don't understand," she said weakly. "They're threatening to cut off Clara's tuition payments if I don't cooperate. Thomas, if you see this, fight for our home. The will they're creating is a fraud. Script part separator ===." By morning, I had a plan. James, my attorney, was stunned by the evidence. "This changes everything, Thomas. We can file emergency injunctions, fraud charges. This is criminal conspiracy." But I knew a direct legal battle would take months, maybe years. I needed to act faster. The development project had a deadline. They needed all property secured within 30 days for their investors. "I want to confront Clara first," I told James. "She deserves to know she's being manipulated." "It's risky," Frank warned. "If they realize you have Elaine's evidence, they might destroy more documents." I couldn't wait. The next day, I watched Clara leave the house alone, a rare occurrence now. I followed her to the cemetery, to Elaine's grave. My heart ached seeing her there, placing fresh flowers. "He abandoned us, Mom," I heard her whisper. "Just like you said he would." I stepped forward. "Is that what they told you I'd do?" Clara spun around, her face paling. "Dad, you can't be here. There's a restraining order." "A fraudulent one," I said calmly. "Just like everything else they've told you." Her eyes narrowed. "Leave me alone. You've done enough damage. Clara, Jason didn't meet you by accident. Vernon Pike hired him to get close to you." "That's ridiculous," she scoffed, but uncertainty flickered across her face. I pulled out my phone. "Your mother left evidence. Real evidence. Jason has been working with Pike for years. They targeted our house because of its location. They needed you to control me. Why should I believe you?" Her voice wavered slightly. "Because your mother recorded this the week before she died." I played Elaine's hospital video. Clara's hands flew to her mouth as she watched her mother's weak but determined confession. Tears streamed down her face. "Jason told me, he said Mom wanted to protect me from your gambling debts. That you'd lost everything. Script part separator ===." I reached for her hand, half expecting her to pull away. She didn't. "There never were any gambling debts, honey. They invented that story to turn you against me. But the will, the papers Mom signed, were signed under duress while she was heavily medicated. They threatened to cut off your tuition if she didn't cooperate." Clara sank onto a nearby bench, her world visibly crumbling. "Why would Jason do this?" "Money. Your boyfriend stands to make millions on this development deal. Our house is the key property they need." She shook her head, struggling to process everything. "I've been living with him, trusting him, defending him to everyone." "I know, sweetheart." I sat beside her, giving her space but staying close. "They manipulated both of us." Her phone buzzed repeatedly, Jason calling. She stared at it, then silenced it. "What do we do now?" she asked, looking suddenly young and vulnerable. "We fight back. But I need your help." Back at Frank's house, Clara reviewed all the evidence her mother had collected. With each document, her expression hardened from hurt to anger. "They used Mom while she was dying," she whispered. "They used me to hurt you." James laid out our legal strategy. We had enough evidence for criminal charges, but the immediate concern was stopping the property transfer before the developer's deadline. Clara made a difficult decision. I'll pretend I don't know anything. Get more evidence from inside. It's dangerous, I warned. These people aren't just businessmen, they're criminals. She straightened her shoulders, looking so much like her mother it made my heart ache. They messed with the wrong family, Dad. For the next week, Clara played her role perfectly. She attended meetings with Pike and Winters, recorded conversations, and copied documents, all while maintaining her relationship with Jason. Meanwhile, James filed emergency motions challenging the fraudulent will and property transfers. Frank's security team documented everyone coming and going from our house. Then came the bombshell. Clara discovered Elaine's original will, the real one, hidden in Winter's files at the house. It left everything jointly to Clara and me, with specific provisions preventing any sale of our home for at least 5 years after Elaine's death. The final piece of our puzzle fell into place. Winters had concealed the legitimate will and created a fraudulent one. This wasn't just unethical, it was criminal. We're ready, James confirmed. The hearing is tomorrow at 9 a.m. That night, Clara returned to the house one last time to gather her personal belongings. She was halfway through packing when Jason came home unexpectedly. Script part separator, What are you doing? Jason asked, eyeing the suitcase on the bed. Clara's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. Just organizing some things. He moved closer, picking up a framed photo she'd packed, one of her with me at her high school graduation. I thought you were getting rid of these. I'm just sorting through memories, she improvised. Jason's eyes narrowed. You saw him, didn't you? Who? Your father. His voice hardened. You've been acting strange all week. That's ridiculous, Clara said, trying to sound dismissive. I haven't. Your location tracker was off for 3 hours Tuesday, he interrupted. When I called the office, they said you'd taken the afternoon off. My blood ran cold when Clara recounted this to me later. I hadn't known he was tracking her phone. You're sawing on me? She asked, genuine anger giving credibility to her performance. Jason grabbed her arm. This development deal is worth millions, Clara. I can't have you jeopardizing everything because you're feeling sentimental about Daddy. Let you go off me. She yanked her arm away, but he blocked her path to the door. Your signature on those transfer documents tomorrow is all we need, he said coldly. After that, I don't care what you do. Clara lifted her chin defiantly. And if I don't sign? Jason's laugh was chilling. Then your father's alleged gambling problem becomes very real. We've already established credit lines in his name. One call is all it takes to activate them. That's when Clara did something unexpected. She pressed record on her phone and asked, So you and Pike falsified my father's financial records? Script part separator, Jason smirked, not noticing the phone in her hand. Why do you think we hired Winters? Man's a genius with paper trails. Your dad never stood a chance. And my mother's will? Was that falsified too? He shrugged casually. Let's just say your mother signed something very different from what ended up in court. Pike needed this property, and we delivered. Clara's hands shook with rage, but she kept her voice steady. So everything was a lie. Even us. Not everything. He touched her face. You were a bonus. A very attractive bonus. She recoiled. You're disgusting. Don't be dramatic. After tomorrow's signing, you'll be set for life. Just stick to the plan. And if I don't? Jason's expression darkened. Then Daddy goes to prison for fraud. Our paper trail is flawless. Who do you think the courts will believe? A broke, desperate old man or a legitimate business with documented evidence? Clara clutched her phone tightly. I need some air. She pushed past him. Don't do anything stupid, Clara, he called after her. Remember what's at stake. The moment she was safely away, Clara called me, voice trembling. Dad, I got it. His full confession. Are you safe? I asked, already grabbing my keys. I'm heading to Frank's now. Jason doesn't know I recorded everything. That recording became the centerpiece of our case. By morning, James had an emergency hearing scheduled with a judge known for his tough stance on real estate fraud. Script part separator equals. The courthouse buzzed with tension the next morning. Clara sat beside me, pale but determined. Across the aisle, Jason and Winters whispered urgently with their attorneys. Vernon Pike had conspicuously failed to appear. Your Honor, James began, we have evidence of a criminal conspiracy to defraud Thomas Miller of his property through falsified documents, identity theft, and coercion of a terminally ill woman. The defense attorney scoffed. These are baseless accusations from a man bitter about his wife's final wishes. That's when James played Clara's recording. Jason's voice filled the courtroom, crystal clear as he admitted to falsifying documents and manipulating Elaine's will. The color drained from Winters' face. The judge's expression hardened. Mr. Winters, as an officer of this court, did you participate in falsifying legal documents? Winters glanced at his attorney, then at Jason, who was staring daggers at Clara. Your Honor, I'd like to confer with my client, Winters' attorney requested hastily. By the time they returned, Winters had clearly made a decision to save himself. Your Honor, I wish to provide evidence regarding Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Pike's activities, he said, not looking at Jason. I was following their directives under duress. Jason exploded. You spineless bastard! After everything we paid you. Two court officers moved to restrain him as the judge banged his gavel. Mr. Lawrence, that's enough. He thundered. Based on the evidence presented, I'm issuing an immediate injunction against all property transfers related to the Miller estate. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Script part separator equals. Winters crumbled on the stand, revealing everything. How Pike had orchestrated the entire scheme, how they'd taken advantage of Elaine's illness, how they'd manufactured evidence against me. Jason sat stone-faced, refusing to speak without his attorney. The judge turned to Clara and me with unexpected compassion. Mr. Miller, Ms. Miller, the court apologizes for your ordeal. I'm nullifying all documents related to the fraudulent will, effective immediately. I felt Clara's hand grip mine. After months of homelessness and humiliation, justice was finally being served. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Pike's development scheme had affected dozens of families in our neighborhood, making this a major local story. Mr. Miller, how does it feel to get your home back? A reporter shouted. I looked at Clara before answering. It's not about the house. It's about the truth. My wife's final wishes were manipulated by people who saw us as obstacles, not human beings. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. My mother left evidence to protect us. Even in her final days, she was fighting for our family. I just wish. She faltered. What do you wish, Ms. Miller? The reporter prompted. I wish I hadn't doubted my father, she said simply. These people drove a wedge between us when we needed each other most. That evening, we returned to our home together. The locks had already been changed by court order, with only Clara and I given keys. Standing in the entryway felt surreal after everything that had happened. Clara wandered through the rooms, touching familiar surfaces. I started redecorating, she said quietly. Trying to erase our history because Jason said it would help me move on. I understand now that moving on doesn't mean forgetting, she continued, picking up a family photo Jason had hidden in a drawer. It means honoring what came before. We spent that night sorting through boxes, restoring our home to the place Elaine had loved. With each picture rehung and each memento returned to its proper place, I felt my wife's presence surrounding us. In the months that followed, justice moved forward with remarkable speed. Jason and Winters both faced criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Pike attempted to flee the country but was apprehended at the Canadian border. Their development company collapsed, saving dozens of neighborhood homes from forced sales. Clara and I rebuilt our relationship day by day. The trust didn't return overnight. We both carried scars from the deception we'd endured. But we attended counseling together, learning to communicate in ways we never had before. 1 year after that fateful court hearing, we gathered with neighbors for a block party celebrating our community's survival. Frank was there with his family, as was James and the hospice nurse who had delivered Elaine's final message. As evening fell, Clara found me sitting alone on our back porch. I think Mom would be proud of us, she said, settling into the chair beside mine. I nodded, watching fireflies blink in the garden near the wall where Elaine had hidden her evidence. She always believed in fighting for what matters. Clara's hand found mine in the gathering darkness. I'm sorry I ever doubted you, Dad. We all made mistakes, I replied. But your mother left us the tools to find our way back. That night, looking at the stars from my own backyard, I finally felt peace settling over me. Life had handed me not just a curveball but a grenade with a pin pulled. Yet somehow, we'd survived the explosion and emerged stronger. The house was just a structure of wood and stone. The real inheritance Elaine left us was the truth that bound our family together, a bond that proved stronger than greed, manipulation, and betrayal. Some legacies can't be written in wills or measured in property values. They live in the love that remains when everything else is stripped away.